Given away by Matthews. Pasternak fakes. Marchand shoots off the post. Stolarz, they score!
We are Rogue Media Sports.
It is the Cam Show. It's Rogue Media Sports Network. Mike, can you pipe down? I'm trying to do a show here. Mike's coaching because we've got another producer in today, Scotty S. I think that's what I'm going to go with, as if there's another Scotty here. Scotty S. on the scene. Wheels of Steel. How's it feel?
Feels great, Cam.
Wow.
Good to see you.
He's already got the answers down. Pat.
Got the voice.
And if you are ready for Steel's a Wheel, let me get you ready for 1 p.m. Central Time, Pete Souza. Pete will be on the show today, from what I know. We got a very big show for you. The Patriots win wildly. We've got our last kind of reminiscing nostalgic things to do on 2004. Plus, Bruins score one on Saturday, which, if you'll remember from watching last week, that is a big win for the Bruins, and specifically the guy who got the game-winning goal. Scotty, I know you're working hard right now. Would you like to take a moment, give a brief bio to the people listening here?
Man,
I'd like your entire life story, please.
Goodness, I was born in Waco. No,
It was a rainy night.
yeah. Happy to be back in Waco. I grew up here. I went to Baylor, so it's good to be here in studio at Rogue Sports Network.
Yes.
Excited to be working with excellent people like yourself.
Well,
it's a good day.
Well,
it's a Monday.
The Colt Brennan Memorial Studio, which I've told Mike about 6 times now. You know Colt Brennan, so I don't have to.
I do.
I don't have to teach you about Colt Brennan.
I remember Colt Brennan.
Yeah. Shut up, Mike. You had your chance. But of course, the big story for me today, the Patriots beating the Jets 25-22, moving their record to 2-6. But more importantly than that, other than the Patriots' victory, is that the Jets are still the Jets. Someone had this great meme on Twitter that was that picture, that old picture of Michael Scott with his old boss, Ed Truck, and they're in that awkward handshake. And it's like lowest expectations in 30 years, highest expectations in 30 years, Patriots, the Jets, both 2-6. 2-6. You're 2-6, New York Jets. This was a team I was being told that they were going to go to the AFC Championship game this year. I was even getting brushed back in this studio. Like, why don't you think they're going to be good, Cam? I don't know, because they're the Jets and they never put it together, and their quarterback is 40 and he's not Tom Brady, and it's all coming together. The Jets. Boy, I thought for most of that game, I had this prevailing thought, which was the Jets will lose to 30 NFL teams today, but not this one. I had this feeling that they would lose to 30 teams, but not the Patriots, the way they were playing. But then they did. They went and they lost to the Patriots because that performance by the Jets was not good enough to beat anybody in the league, anybody. And the Pats pull it out. It didn't look like they were going to after the Jets took the lead late in the fourth quarter. But what do you know? Jacoby Brissett leads them right down the field, leads to this Ramondre Stevenson go-ahead run.
Brissett under center. Here we go. Stevenson on the take. Stevenson is in for the touchdown.
Oh, what a great way to end it. Smash mouth football. Just like I was telling you last week that that's what the Patriots are, a smash mouth running football team, right? Y'all remember me saying that, correct? I tell you, I think I am with many of you guys out there that were totally ready to give up on this game when Gerard Mayo was interviewed at halftime and says, nope, Drake is out for the rest of the game. Got the headshot on while he was sliding in the second quarter. And once you put Jacoby Brissett back in there, I'm like, that's it. It's done. And because I knew the Jets weren't playing well, so it was like it hurt extra that Jacoby Brissett had to go back out there. Like when he trotted back out there on the field and they had a 3rd and 8 and he threw it 4 yards downfield, I considered getting a vasectomy. I was like, I don't want my kids to have to watch anything going with this franchise for the next 10, 15 years or whatever it's going to be. I don't want to expose my children to something that could be like Jacoby Brissett playing football. But Brissett went down there and he made it happen. Game-winning drive, 2-minute drill. The Patriots. Jacoby Brissett. What the hell? Where did that come from? He's hitting Kayshon Boutte for big plays on 3rd and 9. It's like a 35-yard reception, 1st and goal. What is happening? Oh, man. And if you didn't have a good enough reminder when Jacoby went out there, you certainly had it by the end of the game that this is just the worst receiving core I've ever seen. When you get a text that says, I wish the Patriots wide receivers had the hands that Hunter Henry did, then you know you're in a bad way. Like, and Hunter Henry's fine, but like, what are we doing here? I had counted it at 5 drops for Patriots receivers in that game, and Jalen Polk didn't even dress. He and Kendrick Bourne could have been trading jerseys the whole year. We wouldn't have even known. They give you the same thing. They get their hands on everything, and they bring down nothing. Oh, and you see just how much Drake May really, really covers up a lot of the pimples here. The wide receiver core, the offensive line, which had its moments yesterday. Michael Jordan, who had a big holding call, take back a massive pass play, actually had a nice play on that Ramondre Stevenson run. Ramondre had a nice game. You look at the stats, it's not much. 20 carries for 48 yards. You're like, seriously? You're telling me he had a good game? Yeah, when they called on him, he was there. Not always there when you call, but I'm always on time. Had a nice catch down the sideline on a 3rd down, which set up their 2nd touchdown, which he scored as well, scored the game winner. And the Patriots improve to 2-6 and end the 6-game losing streak. But of course, the story around this is the Jets. And I'm okay with that. It's so funny how bad the Jets are because finally, they think they have one over on the Patriots, that they've got a top 5 quarterback of all time, just like the Patriots had a top 1 quarterback of all time for all those years. And look, I mean, you look at this team on paper before the season, and it looked like they had it. It really did. I mean, they had weapons at receiver with Garrett Wilson. They've got good young players in the secondary like Sauce Gardner. Of course, Jalen Mills is making plays for them yesterday, which shows you how damaged that's been. I'm a Breece Hall fan from his days in the Big 12. Like watching Breece Hall. They had a good defense, obviously a really good defensive coach coming into the season. I liked what the Jets were doing, but of course I thought they are the Jets. When they run out there on the field, they're still wearing the green uniforms and their helmet says JETS on it. At the end of the day, they're the Jets. They're owned by Woody Johnson. They play in New Jersey, and they are the New York Jets. And what we're starting to see is that might always prevail. They brought in a top 5 quarterback ever to play the game, and they still do shit like this. They're still the Jets. And they have one of the dumbest plays of the weekend. First off, they used all 3 of their timeouts in the first quarter. I've never seen an NFL team do that. You ever seen an NFL team do that, Scotty?
Not that I can recall, but if somebody was going to do it, it would be Mike McCarthy in Dallas.
Oh, that would be a good call. Good call. And 2 of them were to avoid delay of games. I'm like, every quarterback past like game 2 of their NFL career has the feel for the play clock. Everyone. And you're supposed to tell me a Hall of Fame 40-year-old quarterback halfway through the season does not have a feel for the game clock? Because he doesn't in the first quarter. They have to burn all 3 of their timeouts, and 2 of them are because of that. And then on the critical 2-point conversion that's going to put the Jets up 7 before the Patriots' final drive, they get a delay of game. A delay of game on a 2-point conversion with a 40-year-old quarterback. Get out of your own way, New York Jets. That is so brain dead. That is so stupid. Like, we would kill anyone for doing that. This is a Hall of Fame quarterback doing it for the Jets. I mean, talk about checked out. Oh, man. And even when he was getting the snap off, he just didn't look like Aaron Rodgers, really. His game, I mean, was fine overall when you look at the stats, and he got them into the lead. 17 of 28, 233, a couple of touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. So it looked fine, but when you take those things into account, the fact that he can't manage the damn game clock, it's like, what are we doing here? What a mess. What a mess for the Jets now at 2-6. And what's the name of their Umbricht or something? Umbricht, I think, is their head coach. He is like David Culley incarnate, man. Like, he's just out there clapping it up for his guys. What you saw in that game yesterday, Gerard Mayo versus this Umbricht guy for the Jets, is 2 cheerleaders cosplaying as NFL head coaches. Halloween season, and they're dressing up as NFL head coaches. Just, yeah, come on, guys. Good effort. Hey, good drive there. You know that every time they show him, he's like clapping up in front of the guys who are like on the iPads. Like, at some point, these 30-year-old guys got to be like, shut the hell up and let me play. But this guy is so scared because Saleh probably is a decent head coach, and Aaron Rodgers runs him out of town within 6 weeks of him actually playing. And this guy's going to be like, oh boy, what, I'm walking on eggshells here for the whole rest of this season with a supremely talented team. And of course, we know what Gerard Mayo is, the same thing, just standing there completely still every time they show him. No emotion on his face every time. So, I mean, choose your leader, I guess. The demure approach of Gerard Mayo. Do you like that? The demure approach of Gerard Mayo wins the day. But I mean, talk about 2 bad football teams right now. And it's so wild to look at the matchup of it with, Garrett Wilson is being covered by Marcus Jones. They have Devontae Adams. They have Breece Hall. They've got Sauce Gardner on the outside. They've got all this talent. They've got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Let's simplify this to the simplest terms. Aaron Rodgers just lost a game against Jacoby Brissett in the year 2024. And by the way, it was Jacoby Brissett's first fourth quarter comeback, go-ahead touchdown drive since 2022. He did that against Tampa. So his last 2 game-winning drives have come against Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Talk about a career. Talk about a career. I have a great Aaron Rodgers stat here that I've been trying to look for like 5 minutes. And if I didn't like this or bookmark this, I'm a real idiot. Well, I'm kind of a real idiot anyway. So I'm just really looking for something to talk about until I get there. Did I not do this?
Can I ask you a question about Aaron Rodgers?
Please.
You really think he's a top 5 quarterback ever?
Well, I mean, I'm starting to question it. I mean, yeah. I think if we're taking, yes, because I already said it now, Scotty, so I'm going to stick with it.
Good man.
No, I think Brady, Manning, Montana, and then I get some combination of Elway, Marino, and then Rodgers. I've got him there.
So Mahomes still isn't even in your top 5.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's obvious to me Mahomes is going to be in the top 3, and I think he'll probably end up being the second best player ever. But yeah, this one I'm going off more long-term body of work. But obviously Mahomes, MVPs, Super Bowls, he's right there too. He's right there too. And Rodgers might be falling out with this Jets thing. I know he hasn't done this before, but really done this before. But if he just mails it in and quits on this team for all intents and purposes, would that really surprise anybody?
Well, I'm thinking about it. This even comparing him to Brett Favre. Brett Favre went to the Jets and actually made them a threat for a time.
They tied for the AFC East that year.
Right.
He did throw 22 touchdowns and 22 picks that year.
So he's falling behind Favre.
He's not quite at the Favre's legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And their careers are going to be so similar. One Super Bowl, couple MVPs, really probably didn't get enough championships. I mean, that's what I always said about Mike McCarthy. So I had to hold Rodgers that same standard. I always said Mike McCarthy did less with more than anyone in the league in my lifetime. Tony Dungy can make that claim as well. All right, so here's the stat. Crazy. The Jets had 0 turnovers and held the Patriots to 247 yards and lost. They're the first team to lose a game which they did not turn the ball over and held their opponent under 250 yards since week 3 of 2012. In that game in 2012, the losing quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. The Packers lost to the Seahawks, and that was the Fail Mary game. You remember that?
Yes.
With I think it was Golden Tate who ends up coming down with it with the replacement refs.
Yes.
Since then, and in between those two, the teams who'd done that were 220-0. The Jets.
That's Aaron Rodgers' legacy right there.
Jets. They're done. 2-6. They're finished. They're now last place in the AFC East. The Jets. Jetsuck. Woo! That gives me so much joy to see that the Jets also suck. But of course, the story of the day was the ending in that Washington game. And I mean, it was a good day for one of the top 3 picks in the draft at quarterback, not for the number 1 pick, not for the number 3 pick because he got hurt, but Jaden Daniels had himself a day. Tyreek Stevenson did not. So you've seen the clip of the Hail Mary by now. It's incredible. Great ending. One of the greats we've seen the last few years. But what you might not have seen was Tyreek Stevenson, a safety, I think, or a corner defensive back for the Chicago Bears, who apparently thought this game was over. We're going to show you the clip here. Look at the bottom left, I think it is, of 29 in white and what he is doing. Scotty, roll it. We're working on it. Tyreek Stevenson is, I guess, thinks the game is over, although he knows kind of what to do on a Hail Mary right after that. Like, I don't know why he thought the game was over, but he's like chirping with these fans. Like, he's talking shit to the fans. And he's like, hyping it up, like pretending like they just won the game. And meanwhile, the ball is snapped and the Commanders receivers are running at him. And you can see in like the bottom corner of this, there are some Bears fans down there who are like pointing like, the play has started. The play has started. Oh, we got it. We got it now. All right. We're working on it. So he's like talking all this shit, and the Bears fans have to point out to him that the game is still going on. And I'm like, oh my, as someone who has had a Hail Mary happen against their team fairly recently, actually, at the college level, it's like the worst thing ever because it's such an easy play. It's such a low percentage. It's literally called a Hail Mary. And to then realize that one of your players is talking shit to fans as the other team is coming down to win the game, it's got to be one of the worst feelings you can ever have as a fan. And this guy, obviously, they got some capital on him. He's a second-round pick like 2 years ago. So it's not like they're cutting his ass today. But my God, how do you come back from that? You were just talking shit to fans as the play was going on, as they were winning the game. Oh, man. So, by the way, we could have that number 1 pick, number 3 pick matchup in a couple of weeks. We got to see what Drake May's health is at. And it's possible that could be there. But look at the Patriots' next couple of games, man. If Drake May's out, that really stinks because I think they can get some wins. And yes, I still root for some wins because I still don't think there's any way they win more than like 5 games. So I think they're safe in getting the best left tackle in the draft. But you go to Tennessee next week, and even though they just lost to UT, the best team in Nashville is still Vanderbilt. And then you go and face Chicago, which Chicago's a decent team. Washington's a little bit better. I thought that coming into the game. But that's somewhat winnable if you have Drake May. And then LA at home, the Rams, and who knows what they're doing at that point. I mean, they might be complete fire sale by that point. And it all depends on whether you have Drake May. I mean, Jacoby Brissett, nice story, good gutsy game, good comeback, but this can't be Jacoby Brissett's team again with any kind of hope. But anyway, speaking of hope, we're gonna close the book on the nostalgic Red Sox week in the next segment. We're also gonna talk a little Bruins as well, if I have time to get to it. We'll see. But I mean, we're coming off a major anniversary for these 04 Red Sox. Pete loved the documentary. I'm sure he's going to talk my ear off about the documentary later on in the show. But we'll get this final 20th anniversary thing and a little bit of a nice wrinkle to it coming up on the Camp Show. throwback on the Cam Show, Colt Brennan Memorial Studio, Rogue Media Sports Network, world famous Alico building. Of course, where else would you talk Boston sports but Waco, Texas? So here I am, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, talking about why do we need all this 04 Red Sox stuff? We hear about it every year. What else is there to say? Yada, yada, yada. But I also said, I threw in the caveat. I said, I will be into it because I always am. It's like the first week in February every year. I get the videos on my timeline of however many years ago today, the Patriots won the Super Bowl and did this great, amazing thing that changed your life for the better. And so it's bittersweet to look back on. So I had in the studio, I've had this the whole time, the Boston Globe from 20 years ago today. It's one of my favorite things that I own. It's the whole issue of the Red Sox finally winning the World Series. And it's got some great old things in here. Here's a Verizon flip phone ad on the back of it. It's got a bunch of like stores advertising for the championship gear, stores that don't exist anymore. But of course, we all remember that moment. I remember where I was in that moment 20 years ago. We've got the clip of it because it almost chokes me up every time. Scotty, let's get that final out here, which was the one I sent right before the show, which I do apologize for.
No stolen base.
Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
Truly one of the great moments in sports history. Generations had come and gone. I'm sure my grandfather never thought he would see it. He was 74 when they won it. And it's crazy that we've seen the same amount of Red Sox World Series titles, but we have. He was 74. My dad was 47. I think they'll both admit to you. Well, one's dead. It is my grandfather. Because Bill's been on the show, so he's probably not dead. They both would admit to you they probably never thought they would see it. But so that was the 20th anniversary of that. And what I love, look, a quick note, by the way, this is such a guys naming dudes note here. Edgar Renteria makes the final out there. What an interesting World Series career for Edgar Renteria. As like a rookie, like 21-year-old or something in 97, he hits the walk-off hit in Game 7 of the World Series. He wins the World Series for the Florida Marlins off Charles Nagy and makes the final out in 04, and then wins a World Series MVP with the Giants in 2010 when everyone thought he was washed up. Weird kind of career for Edgar Renteria. Shout out to him. Shout out to Edgar Renteria. But more importantly, shout out to the Red Sox. And I love looking back at this old globe because you look through all the pages and everything has to do with the Red Sox. This is city and region, and it's just people like celebrating the Red Sox victory. And it's the people that are working the night shift at bars and at this is the KM Franks like plant, and they're watching the World Series games, and you can see it through people's windows in their houses, which sounds creepier than it actually is. It's like a really cool issue. And what I went to and I gravitated towards today, I did not plan on this today, but started looking at the obits and the death notices, because you don't necessarily get it from this issue, but the few days following that World Series were much like the days after Christmas, where a lot of people die because they hold on for one last Christmas. And like the 3 or 4 days following the Red Sox World Series win was like record number of deaths, because people were just holding on to see the Red Sox win the World Series. And you see it all down here. These would have been people who did not see it. They died a day or two before. And these are just the notices for most of these. So it's, from here, born on this day, calling hours are this day, And there's a bunch in here that would say, like, fan of the Red Sox, enjoyed watching the Red Sox every night, really wanted to see the Red Sox win it. And then there's this obit from Joseph Fahey. He was a lawyer, and he passed away. It was actually on October 23rd, which was the day of Game 1 of the World Series, from Belmont, which is just outside of Boston. Had a really great life. He was a lawyer for a long, long time, very successful lawyer in Cambridge, which, beautiful people. You got to be a pretty successful lawyer to be living there. And the quotes, the thing that strikes me most, other than the fact that he was a great lawyer, what is that he was one of the most truly decent people I've ever known. These are some of the quotes about him: dedicated, committed, great family man. He was the only one of his siblings to make it past infancy. It's all this great story. And then at the end, it says he also had a lifelong allegiance to the Red Sox. His daughter said he was born 9 months after they won the World Series in 1918, and he died the day they started this one. That's tough, man. This is a guy who lived this whole great life, a family, saw world wars, so much change in his life, good, long, full life, 85 years old, and he never saw his team win it. And here you go. The issue of the Globe that is them actually winning it has his obit in it. So there's a weird kind of beauty to that, but that kind of struck me this morning. I don't like that, those kinds of stories. Oh man, just missed it. We were lucky in our family. My great grandmother, who actually was a pretty decent Red Sox fan, like, she listened to all the games. She was born in 1910 and had some vague memory of the newspaper reels of them winning it in 1918. And she did get to see them win it in 2004. I'm very, very thankful that she got to see it, that my grandparents got to see it, that most of the people in my life that were big time Red Sox fans got to see it. But Joseph Fahey, man, that's tough. That's a real tough one. 9 months after they won it the first time, or in 1918, and lived a whole lot of life and yet did not get to see that. It does kind of make you feel how blessed you really are that in my lifetime, I'm a pretty young guy. I think some days I've got to see them win 4. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that really struck me today to see that. And I'm sure we'll talk about this with Pete, but we talked about it a little bit at the end of last week with this documentary. Like, it's not, even for people growing up in New England now, it's tougher to realize, like, that was a really huge deal. Like, everyone, and not just the World Series, I'm like, everyone's first team was the Red Sox. Like, no matter how great the Celtics runs were in the 60s and obviously in the 80s, the Bruins in the 70s, and like through all of that, through Bobby Orr, Larry Bird, Bill Russell, all the way up to Brady, the Red Sox were still number one. And like, after the Celtics would win titles, it'd be like a dynasty in the NBA. Can't wait till the Red Sox go and do it. The 67 Impossible Dream Red Sox were way more popular than any of Russell's Celtics teams. Like that's just how it was. And it took, the NFL being the monster that it is today and the Patriots dominating it like no team had ever done before to really kind of take baseball out of the number one spotlight. But 03-04, like that was still the biggest thing. And the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, but that was still the biggest thing. And so, I think of a guy like Joe Fahey here who might have traded all those Celtics titles for one Red Sox World Series, and like so many people would have. And it's just maybe the best baseball town at the time, just could not get it, could not get to see it for generations and generations and generations. So shout out to you, Joseph Fahey and family. And all those in the death notices who, died the 26th or the 27th, the morning of the 27th, and didn't get to see it. There's a bunch in here, and there were a couple that were 1919, 1918, like had really gone through the breadth of it and didn't get to see it happen. Anyway, Bruins played this weekend. That's an old team too. Bruins took on the Leafs, and we were bashing the Bruins all last week because, I mean, they should have been. They were in a bad way, lost 3 in a row. They didn't look good. Their prospects for the season don't look good in terms of that forward group. And Jim Montgomery was bitching out his captain last week, Brad Marchand. You remember it after that Utah game, he had given away the puck that led to the game-tying goal in the third period. And so he gets asked about this in the locker room last week about, hey, like, is your coach being too tough on you? And here's what Marchand had to say about that.
People are very sensitive these days, and there's a lot of it's unfortunate how coaches are scrutinized over things like that. There's a lack of accountability nowadays because people can't handle the heat, and you make a mistake like that, you deserve to hear about it. I'm glad that he said something about it. If he didn't, we would have a much bigger issue. So, that the fact that that's something that we're talking about is, it's disappointing, but that's the way things are today.
And you think it makes sense? It makes sense that he's giving it to you as the captain to show the other guys that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's an accountability that needs to be held in this room, and nobody's absolved from that. I made a really bad mistake and a bad time of the game, and that's something that's not acceptable, and I shouldn't have done to begin with. But the fact that I expected to hear about it not only from him but a bunch of guys on the bench too. So I should be held accountable in that situation, and I'm glad that he did.
And look, like, I don't have any problem with Jim Montgomery coming after Brad Marchand at that point of the game. It's a guy who might still be coaching for his job here. Absolutely. And his captain is probably playing through something, but isn't playing well enough, and gave up the puck in a bad area, led to a game-tying goal in a game that they lost, and against what they thought was an inferior team. And so flash forward to Saturday, he still does not have a goal on the season, and they're actually playing a good game against the Leafs. They're leading late in the game, 3-2, and the Leafs pull their goalie. Marchand's got a shot in an empty net. He's past the red line, about to enter into the offensive zone, and he fumbles the puck. He loses it. Leafs come down. Austin Matthews scores the game-tying goal. And then Brad Marchand did let out some of that frustration in overtime.
Given away by Matthews. Pastrnak fakes. Marchand shoots off the post. Stolarz, they score! It's David Pastrnak again in overtime. Bruins victorious 4-3 over the Maple Leafs.
Patriots still have the Jets. The Bruins still have the Leafs. By the way, it was Marchand on that goal. Judd Surratt says Pastrnak right away. I thought it was Pastrnak. I still haven't seen a definitive angle that shows that it's off Marchand's stick, but he's the one who celebrated, and Pastrnak deferred to him. So that's Brad Marchand's first goal of the season, off a giveaway from Austin Matthews. Hell yeah, dude. This is what I mean. This is what I mean, dude. The Jets, they need a win in any way possible, and yet they do all this stupid shit to lose to possibly the worst team in the league, the Patriots. And here, the Bruins are not the worst team in the NHL, but they're in a bad way right now. The Leafs are better. They know they're better. And we talk about this mental game between the Bruins and the Panthers, and that the Bruins just aren't good enough to and not mentally prepared to beat the Panthers. It's that way times 1,000 for the Leafs against the Bruins, who have now lost 8 straight regular season games to Boston. And it shows in that. Like, Matthews has a great moment. He ties the game. It's a beautiful goal. Marner, awesome pass to Matthews. And then overtime, when Toronto has possession for most of it, Austin Matthews giveaway, Bruins goal. Guy scores his first goal of the year, and the Leafs lose again. It's just perfectly poetic. I think there's still a lot of questions with Brad Marchand going forward. Again, the guy's still 36. He's a legend. I think he's done a great job as captain of this team, specifically last year, and pulling them up by their bootstraps a few times. I think he's been a good lead by example guy, but I just don't know. I just don't know how much you can count on him this year in terms of production. And to be fair to Brad Marchand, there shouldn't have been that much expectation on his plate in terms of pure point production. We kind of took it off Bergeron's plate a little bit his final 2 years, and Bergeron gave you 2 final pretty good years, like the last 2 years in Boston, I thought. But Marchand is working with a much more bare cupboard, and no pun intended. And I just don't know how much of that load he can carry throughout the rest of this season. But anyway, he got it done on Saturday. The Bruins just need to face the Leafs. I was sitting here saying, if they lose the Leafs, man, that's going to be tough for them mentally. Instead, they get a lift by beating Toronto again. I still don't know how that's going to fare if and when they face off in the first round, and if that series has home ice for Toronto. I just don't know how that's going to go. What I do know is that Pete Souza is going to join us in the next segment. He's back, folks. We'll have Pete for you coming up next on the Cam Show.
Yo, what's up, Cam?
Pete's back. Where were you this weekend?
I
Are you at liberty to tell?
I went back to Philadelphia.
Of course.
We were
Is that a new quarter zip?
yeah. I
Cutter
got
and
it at
Buck?
the Villanova bookstore. I only do logos like this for Villanova. I grew up, was raised in the shadows of Villanova University. We can go on forever about my connection to the school. Mom worked there, brothers went there, Jay Wright, Raleigh Massimino, the whole deal. But this is my logo. Okay. This is like the late 80s.
Looks busy.
Huh?
It looks busy.
No, it's a beautiful.
I mean, it's good, but
it's
it
a
just
beautiful
looks a little busy.
Wildcat. You can't see it. It's a beautiful Wildcat.
Their new
with
V
gold.
or new the V they've had for
Yeah.
however long now. To me, it kind of screams like the Arizona logo, which is
Well-
just kind of boring to me.
And you have to take into consideration, I think, a lot of these schools. Look, you want to be a national brand,
Right.
You can't be a V everywhere in the world. It doesn't work like that. But if you have a Villanova, if it's in your logo, I think that's a huge help.
That's kind of, I think Baylor's running into that now because everyone loves the Sailor Bear logo.
Yeah.
And they won't use it as a primary thing. Like they won't just put it on the helmet because they want BU to be the national branding. And they've done this secondary logo, which is a different bear, which I think stinks. And so they try to hammer that home. It's just like, go with what the fans like,
I think
man.
if you're
Go with what
Baylor,
has staying
you
power.
have your
I think the
signature-
BU's fine, by the
Yeah.
way. I think the BU's fine.
Yeah.
But like I get bummed out that they only want to do Sailor Bear like once a year, and they're just now starting to put it on some of the quarter zips for Scott Drew or anything. Like they don't even try to sell that much with it.
Yeah, I think that you just have to really be self-aware of the fact that, like, you know, you want your brand to speak wherever you are in the world, you know, and I think that when you sometimes it takes having your unique logo and then the full word, of your institution or words.
You tried to call me the other day. Remember that?
And you didn't answer. You put me.
I think
right
I
to
was.
voicemail.
I think I was in the show. Yeah,
Yeah, you-
I have my phone on Do Not Disturb all the time, like all the time.
All right, which is fine,
But you were calling me to talk about this documentary. You watched the Netflix documentary?
dude. I watched it. It was so good.
It's good.
First of all, you were right. Like somebody like me, like I don't remember all of it. I
That's what I
lived
mean,
through
yeah.
it. I watched it, but I wasn't like a diehard, Sox fan or Yankees fan for that matter. So I didn't know
Yeah.
like the ins and outs of it. And the way that they brought the context by showing the 2003 season, I so many thoughts, so well done. You really fall in love with a lot of the guys on that team.
Yeah. I see. That's the thing that I love that it did more than most of the programs about that team is there was real context to it. That whole first episode is about 03, which I talked about on here. I think is like maybe the most fascinating season in Red Sox history.
Yeah.
Like it's so up and down, so emotional, so rip your heart out at the end when they finally thought they had it.
The Grady
And so
Little
much
stuff
character to it. Boy,
is egregious.
they made Grady Little out to be a real meathead,
It's hard
which
not to.
I mean, kinda.
I hate that just from a personal standpoint. Like you get Grady Little to be in this documentary, he agrees to do it. Then you make him look like shit. And I guess that's the truth. You know what I mean? Like you want to be unmerciful in your quest for the truth, but yeah, it didn't make him look great.
Which, by the way, I know you won't be surprised to learn this. The two brothers that made it are like lifelong Red Sox fans.
Yeah.
Their dad wrote for the Herald of the Globe, Mike Barnacle. And they're a few years older than me. And so like, I think they were like teenagers, dyed in the wool, 03, 04. So like that means a lot. I wish they had gotten Nomar for it. I'm sure he said no. I obviously
What is
believe
the
they tried,
deal
but
with that,
I'm wondering because I think there's still a grudge there from Nomar. Like I don't obviously not the same way it was 15, 20 years ago, but I think there's still like he doesn't come back a lot. He's way more involved with the Dodgers. He's a Southern LA guy. Like he'll do Dodgers pregame stuff. He throws out the first pitch for the Dodgers sometimes. In fact, he did it in the World Series when they played the Red Sox. He threw out the first pitch at Dodger Stadium wearing a Dodgers jersey.
really?
Yeah. Yes. Which is wild.
Yeah.
But I think there's still some animosity there. But I thought that was the first one that did a good job of showing kind of the downside of both Nomar and Manny. Because people look back at Manny, oh, lovable Manny being Manny. Oh, he's so funny. Well,
Dude,
he had some
story
troubles
where he
off the field, and he
disappeared
also just like dipped on the team a couple of times.
and was drinking at the Yankees hotel bar.
Yeah, with Ruben Sierra. Was that who it
No, it
was?
wasn't Ruben
No,
Gleyber Torres? No.
no. Who was it? Miguel Cairo?
I think so. I think it was.
No, Enrique Wilson.
Yes.
Enrique Wilson.
Is Enrique Wilson skipping the game too?
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. But I love that like someone actually said that and like Nomar, like he didn't give up on his team, but like there was a lot of drama with Nomar, and he was one of those guys that, obviously great play. And I love Nomar as a player. I don't want this to be like the overarching theme of it, but he was one of those guys who by the end, like if he wasn't 100%, he wouldn't play. And those guys are really frustrating to Red Sox fans.
Yeah.
JD Drew is one of those that comes to mind. And he was always battling injuries. They did start testing for steroids around that time, and suddenly Nomar had a bunch of injuries. And that game in July at Yankee Stadium is the one they highlight. That was, murder in the press.
You remember that?
Yes, is one of my first like Red Sox memories because I remembered how good Nomar was, and like Sports Talk Radio was ripping this guy to shreds. And I'm like, what the hell happened? And my dad was like, they needed him last night. He wouldn't go into the game. And it was very like a stark contrast of seeing Derek Jeter make that ridiculous play and Nomar on the bench, and like they're showing him in the dugout right afterwards. And that was it. And what I don't think they really mentioned in there, which is a big part of this, is the Red Sox offered him a lengthy extension before that season. And Nomar thought he was insulted by it. And I got to go back and see the figures, but he gave up a ton of money through that because he obviously gets traded to Chicago, and then gets short-term deals after that.
Yeah.
Like he's never a 5-6 year contract guy ever after that. And so he walked away from probably 80 to 100 million bucks.
And, you know, it's amazing. We build a lot of these guys up to be so tough and have this like wire exterior, right? That's going to keep everything out. But the truth is they're just like us. And like Nomar got his feelings hurt really bad.
Yes.
By a teammate and by a contract offer. And
well,
by
that
the
one was
A-Rod thing.
I should mention the Kevin Millar thing is wild. And I had actually forgotten about that.
Yeah.
But even if you think the deal is done, that's a wild thing to be on ESPN and say, we'll take A-Rod. And you see it like he just has that smile stuck, and they're like, "Oh my God, he said
like,
that." You know,
just be diplomatic about it.
Oh,
you know,
it's
like no,
wild.
and the Christmas trees in the background. They do such a good job with.
And
all
Millar's
that
just
stuff.
like, it was kind of awkward for a couple months.
Yeah. Did you
Like,
did you know that team was that close?
Well, at the time, no, because I wasn't.
Yeah.
Like I was so young. But looking back on it, like, yes, they were very close, and they highlight it well in there in that was one of the best offenses in the history of baseball at that point, 03. Like they really raked.
Raked. You guys love rake, dude.
Raked.
Oh my gosh. Theo loves saying raked.
Theo.
Right?
Loved how much Theo was in this. I'm a big Theo fan.
Theo was
Always
so
have been.
awesome. Impossible not to really
By
like
the way,
this.
in 9 months, I will be the same age that Theo was when he was the general manager of the
28
Boston
years
Red Sox.
old. That is really wild.
Oh,
And
it's insane.
how about the ownership group? The way that they talk about that in pro sports, how you want to go to the head of the snake, man. That's where it all starts. Your ownership group. And it really trickles down whether you want to admit it or not. And we see it a lot in what unfolds on the floor, field, or court, whatever. That new ownership group really changed the temperature.
They did. And it's not been great the last few years in a very opposite way. And Red Sox fans, much like myself, are kind of sick of it. But they went for Billy Beane. And obviously that would have been a great deal, I thought. And I love what they said in there. They were like, we're popping champagne when it looked like we were going to get Billy Beane. And they talk about going to Theo and Billy saying, hey, this is the guy. You should really just promote this guy. And then the Barnacle kid asked him, they're like, were you popping champagne for Theo? No.
One of
Like,
the
I thought
things,
that was really funny.
One of the things I loved about every guy that was interviewed for that documentary is they were unapologetically truthful, and they weren't trying to look cool. It seemed like, at least, everybody seemed like they were being very honest, and they didn't rewrite history with rose-colored glasses. They share like the doubt, the indecision. I thought at the end what Theo says, and it's true because you can sense it watching it, Theo. What your GM says.
Who was it who said that? Like, I played high school baseball with Theo Epstein, and then 10 years later, he's just known as Theo. Like, he's just one name, Theo.
That was one of his boys, I think.
Yeah.
Who apparently,
and I think it was
now.
actually, it was one of the guys that worked with him.
Yeah.
He worked with a couple old teammates. Jed Hoyer played college baseball. Sam Kennedy. I think it was Sam Kennedy who said it. By the way, they put out Sam Kennedy, who's the current president of baseball or whatever for the Red Sox. He's a crony for the FSG. And they just throw him out there. And the only thing he says in the documentary is talking about Theo. And then he's gone. And then he's done. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. You're talking about Theo.
But
Theodore.
He talks about from where they were going into that game down 3-0 to when they walk off with the Poppy home run, I guess. Mm-hmm. Just like how different the vibe was around the team. It's just sports is unbelievable. Like the human drama that we get to watch unfold. The Yankees losing 4 straight.
Yeah.
And you guys going to game 7.
They had not lost 4 straight all year, by the way.
No.
100
really?
games. Yep. Had not lost 4 straight at any point in the season.
And so the Red Sox finished the game on an 8-game winning streak, correct?
Yeah.
That's so wild. And they'd never done it before. It just shows like momentum is so very real. You know, and belief in yourself and like the here we go again stuff. It
seemed like they only needed one thing because they did win 98 games that year.
Yes.
Like, they were a really good team, but they finished second to the Yankees all the time. So
how about Shaughnessy? Now he writes the I give him credit, and this is what you aspire to be as a journalist. He probably knew Kevin Millar, and he knew that he was maybe like a teddy bear or whatever. But Shaughnessy writes this story, another story where he calls them frauds.
pack of frauds.
A pack of
biggest
frauds.
pack of frauds in Red Sox
They're
history.
down 3-0. He says the pack of frauds.
So he had said that in July and
Yeah.
then brought it back when they
Yep.
were down 3-0. Yeah.
But he's standing there, I mean, not bowed up, but toe-to-toe with Millar. Like he's at the ballpark. The day after that story obviously comes out, or the day that story comes out, and he's just like, yeah, you guys got to be embarrassed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was like owning it.
He says, you guys are better than this.
Yeah, I thought it was a really
It's a good turn by Shaughnessy.
Yeah, that was very good. But I think it's a very illuminating situation about like how to write and cover a team. Like you're going to put something like that in your column, you show up the next day.
Yeah. And then
You know?
Millar starts telling him, he's like, you can take that pack of fraud comments back. You know, we got PD game 5, Shill game 6, and he's doing this, and Shaughnessy's writing it down.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. He's like, okay, I'm going to use this.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
We're going to use it. I'll give you the voice here. And it's, again, I mean, I've talked about it so much, but think about, like, we think about teams now that match up a couple years in a row and they don't beat somebody for, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, I don't know, like the Cavs, they beat the Warriors that year and then they lost the next 2. And it's like, oh, the Warriors are their daddy. Right. And they probably still feel that. They probably still feel like, I don't like seeing the Warriors win anything because of what they did. How about that for 90 years? They never, ever beat the Yankees when it mattered. Never. Right? Like 49, it comes down to the last weekend of the season and they lose 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. They blow it. They completely blow it. 78, a 14-game lead at one point, and they managed to tie the series back or tie the division standings with the Yankees to get a 1-game playoff at home, lose. 03, have a lead in the 8th inning of Game 7 at Yankee Stadium, lose. Like every time of asking, they lost to them. And yes, the count in between is 26-0 in championships. Like I remember growing up with this story and it almost didn't feel real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, think about that. It's 2 bitter rivals who actually have a lot in common and long-standing hatred for one another. They both lift each other up in a certain way.
You couldn't have made it up, dude.
And
It really
the
was.
Red Sox were the early dynasty, and then they go missing for a century. And the Yankees are the most successful team in the history of sports to that point. Like that is, talk about a kick in the nuts. Like, and to then pull off the greatest comeback ever and to do it at their stadium.
Yeah.
I actually read a great column that my dad sent me this morning. Tara Sullivan, who now works for the Globe. Patriots just traded Josh Uche. Patriots just traded Josh Uche to the Chiefs.
Do you like that, Cam?
It's fine. He's a good player, but he was a healthy scratch yesterday. Pass rusher. Not much of a use for him this year. So I wish they got more than a 6th-round pick, but I think he's on
That's good.
expiring. So
That's great.
Anyway, sorry. So
I like that team trying to build.
yeah,
You know,
I don't. It's not going to help him out this year. Same thing with the Judon thing early in the year. But anyway, Bill sends me this thing from Tara Sullivan, who covered that series from the Yankee perspective. She was working for a Bergen newspaper, and she talks about like Yankee fans for decades would make fun of the Red Sox fans for that feeling, for that head in your hands feeling of, oh my God, we blew it again. And that finality of it all, that certainty that you had blown it. And for the first time ever, you saw it with the Yankee fans.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how do you come back from that as the Yankees? And honestly, that core, I don't want to say never really recovered, but it kind of never really recovered.
They didn't win a title till
Jeter and
they
A-Rod, Jeter, A-Rod, Mariano, Posada, all were there in 09.
Yeah, when they beat the Phils.
And it was kind of, you'll remember, it's kind of a 1-year thing. They didn't make the playoffs the year before. They spent big in free agency to get Teixeira and AJ Burnett and CC Sabathia. And then they were kind of done after that. So yeah, I mean, they did come back, but They were the best team in baseball at that point, and
It-
they didn't build back up on it again.
What an amazing job too, Cam. The can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my things. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you, but yeah.
So the way that the guys came into the stadium, right? Like all the Yankees with like those really bad 2003, 2004 suits. I mean, those suits are so bad.
Hell
And
yeah.
and the Red Sox were just showing up like in whatever, you know.
Loose. Yep.
Oh, it's Poppy was so likable.
Dude, you know what it is? At the end of the day, it's the fucking outsiders, man. It's the greasers and the socias.
Oh, now you're
That's
talking.
exactly what it is, man.
Yeah.
And
You gotta love
you
the
like
greasers.
everyone who reads that book without any preconceived notion is rooting for the greasers. It's obviously told from their point of view, which helps. But you know what I mean? Like, you're not rooting for the
Dude, you should-
Yankees. You're not
we-
rooting for insurance
You should
companies.
write a
You're not
book. You should write a book on outsiders or the insiders, and it will be the socias view.
I don't want to do
The
that.
socias take on all
no
that.
fucking
Yeah,
way, man. No way.
Yeah.
And I did you notice who the Yankees were that actually did the documentary, actually did the interviews?
Yeah, it was Joe Torre.
Yep.
Derek Jeter. No, Jeter wasn't in it.
Nope.
No, I'm like A-Rob wasn't in it. Oh, Chef. Chef was awesome.
Joe Torre, Gary Sheffield, that's it. That's it. No Cashman, no Jeter, no Posada, no. They were so done talking
Well,
about
by the
that
way,
shit.
this was in association with Major League Baseball, and Joe Torre works for MLB.
That helps.
I
So-
thought that through. I was
so
like,
really, they only got Sheffield.
yeah. And boy, Sheffield's cool. Oof, he is so cool.
I'll bet he watched that and was like, "Oh shit, no one else did it.
I bet
None
he
of my
doesn't
other guys
care.
did it."
He was so a guy
Oh,
smoking
man.
a cigar the whole time they do the interview gives no you know what's.
Anyway, it was good. I'm glad you liked it, Pete.
I loved it.
You took it as an
literally-
insult when I said, "Oh, you'll like it,"
Yeah, no, you were right again.
and I liked it. I never thought I wouldn't like it. I was just kind of like, we've heard the story so many times, but I'm glad
Yeah.
they put the context into it, and I'm closing the book on that. Tomorrow we'll talk about other stuff. How about that, guys? How do we feel
Yeah.
about that? Feel good? Okay. Pete, 1 p.m. Central Time, Pete Souza Show on YouTube. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back noon Eastern tomorrow, high noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time, right here on YouTube. And then afterwards, wherever you get your podcast. Stay golden, Pony Boy. We'll see you tomorrow on the Cam Show.